Good morning, everyone. The hearty, the few, actually quite many. I was impressed. Yeah, I lost the bet on how many people would make it. So there's more of you than, it's wonderful that you're here. And some of you following along on Facebook streaming who didn't drive, we're happy you're here too. Okay, this is Reno Buddhist Center, and we're here together to share the Dharma. We will now chant the Shoshinge, which is this book in the seat back pocket in front of you. It's written by the founder of our lineage, Shinran Shonin, about 750 years ago. And in it, he is still talking and thinking and practicing Pure Land Buddhism with us. The Shoshinge compresses his insights and experiences with the Pure Land tradition into this pleasantly lengthened poem. How can you say long without saying, oh, it's not that long? Okay. It's interesting. We open the book this way and read in the vertical columns like this. So take care to do that. It's also written, the translation is written in English at the bottom if you're concerned about the content. In it, we realize the principles that guide our lives. Shinran wanted us to know that our life is more than just a simple journey from cradle to grave, that we are part of a long, unbroken thread of life that extends deep, deep into the past, and we're responsible to continue that thread into the future. During the chanting of the Shoshinge, we will offer incense. Everyone is welcome to participate. There are no rules or anything. Everyone's encouraged to come and give it a try. If you're new, if you're visiting us for the first time, give it a try. There will be incense helpers here to help out. The offering of incense is traditionally a cleansing of the mind and body before receiving the Dharma. The burning of incense symbolizes transcending our individual self and becoming one with all. We use this gesture, gasho, during the incense offering. And it symbolizes the unity of my little self with the Amida Buddha and the wisdom and compassion of the universe joined together in this kind of connection. There on the altar is Amida Buddha offering boundless wisdom and compassion to us all. Let's offer incense with a warm heart and deep gratitude for all your teachers. Thank you.
Shoshinge Butsuge. Kimyo Muryo Junyorai Namu Fukashigi Ko Hozo Bosai Niji Zai Seiji Zai Obusho Token Shobu Jodoin Kokudo Ningen Shizen Maku Konju Mujo Shushogan Choho Keu Daiguze Gokoshi Yuishi Shonju Juse Myosho Monji Po Fuho Muryo Muhenko Muge Mutai Ko Enno Shoujo Kangi Chieko Fudan Nanchi Mushoko Chonichiga Ko Shojinse Isai Gunjo Mukosho Hongan Yogo Shojogo Shishin Shingyo Ganni Joto Gakusho Dai Nehan Hishi Metendo Ganjoju Nyorai Shoi Ko Shuse Yui Se Mida Hongon Kai Gojoku Akuji Gunjo Kai Oshin Nyorai Ryo Jitengon Noho Ichinen Ki Aishin Fudan Bondo Tokune Han Honsho Gyaku Hosai Ru 妙修心入開一味聖修心本上昇後意の水波無明湾頓内心臓死有無上不心自心人天非尿に幸福運無運無しげ妙無湾薬心謙虚大狂気即応超税後悪臭異彩前幕本部人門心如来偶世願仏言古代小芸者税人用分がりけ弥陀部本願念部茶謙虚まなく修上信行十字人に願願中止難昔インド最天子論下中華自治期史こそ現代小構成小異如如来本税大き釈迦如来ヨガ戦一種五妙難天軸如十大自主と性質の財派有無権先税大乗無情報召喚議事小安楽賢治難行六六信行異行死道楽億年弥陀部本願次年即時入筆上唯の上昇如来語大法大悲偶税音天神菩薩増論世奇妙無下根如来永寿たら謙信寺高専王朝大聖願こういう本願力栄光移動群上昇維新記入功徳大崩壊筆略入大永寿宗特使蓮華造世界即昇進用法昇進有本の人間人図入生寺四寺大下本寺動乱両天地上高乱小菩薩来三蔵ルシ十上教本書専業気楽法天神菩薩論中下報道因果見世願方言栄光有他力少女死因唯心人惑前本部新人法承知生じ即涅槃必死無量光明道小有修上開復系同社継承道難所有名浄土活入万全自力変言宗変満特語感染症三風三神慶音言増魔法明道非因一生増悪知偶税思案了解小妙化全道独妙無所異公愛上三両逆悪公明明語家二年開入本願大智慧行者小樹金剛心狂気一年総合用意大と逆三人即小法小四上楽現心公開一大教変気安養官二祭先祖出身反戦人法家二道小弁流極重悪人唯勝部外悪罪非正集中 煩悩証言水不見大悲無見上昇が本次元空明仏教連民全幕本部人新宗教書後編集戦弱本願具惑星現代生自輪伝芸慶地義上位少子即入弱上無意楽非知信心に納入仏教大自主使徒上妻無変極辱枠同族自主愚道心唯化心しこそせナムアミダアンブナムアミダアンブナムアミダアンブナムアミダブナアムアミダアンブナムミダジョブのこの方は今に自己をへたまえりおしんのこうりえぬきわもなくせのもみょうを照らすなり栄光願にしくどくようどせいさいのぼ大心おじょはあんらこナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナ
Good morning. Today's reading is from the Dhammapada, chapter 16, called The Deer. We envy those who practice when we are practicing what we shouldn't, not practicing what we should. We have abandoned the goal and cling to what is dear. Don't get entangled with what you long for or dislike. Not seeing what you long for is suffering. Seeing what you dislike is suffering. Therefore, do not turn anything into something longed for, then it will be dreadful to lose. Without longing or dislike, there are no bonds. There's no grief. Where would fear come from? Infatuation gives rise to grief. Infatuation gives rise to fear. For someone released from infatuation, there is no grief. And where would fear come from? Craving gives rise to grief. Craving gives rise to fear. For someone released from craving, there is no grief. Where would fear come from? People hold dear those who have done their own work, complete in virtue and vision, established in the Dhamma, and who speak the truth. Anyone who aspires to the indescribable, whose mind is expansive and whose heart is not bound by craving, is called one who goes against the stream. Relatives, friends, and companions rejoice when a long absent person returns from afar. Just so, in passing from this world to the next, the good we have done receives us, as a family does when a loved one returns. We will now have a few moments of meditation accompanied by music.
Always a delicate moment there, negotiating my way onto this platform. But it's very comfortable to be able to sit down with you. About 450 years ago, one of our teachers, Reno, whose picture is below Shinran's picture behind me, started doing Dharma talks just like sitting in a circle with people like this, and the establishment was up in arms, being like, well, wait, why aren't you standing up on a high thing and talking to the people? He's like, I like talking to people. That's what's good. So that's what we're doing. Can people in the back hear me? Sometimes we forget to turn the speakers on, but it looks like we're good, so that's important. So, good morning and welcome to Reno Buddhist Center. I'm coming to you from Reno, Nevada, via our live streaming system. That's actually very close to how Dr. Matsunaga would address us when we had a big projection TV here, and he was in Hokkaido, Japan. We were here, and he would beam the Sunday service to us from there. But we're always happy you're here with us physically in the room. That's great. Visitors are very welcome. Ask any question you like. At the end, there'll be a time for questions after tea. Everyone is welcome. That's important to know. The life of the temple has rolled onward. It's been 2 weeks since we talked. I can't believe it's been 2 weeks since we talked. It just seems like more recent. We had our Dharma snowshoe yesterday, which was snowy. We didn't go all the way to the top of Mount Rose because that would have been a little arduous, so we just went to Thomas Creek, and 7 of us trudged along, and there was sunlight and heavy snow showers, and it was a Dharma talk, but I've never had to sweep the snow off my notes before, so that was an interesting part of the Dharma talk. It was about emptiness, and being in nature is the best place for me to experience the emptiness as we mean it in Buddhism. But that's a whole other Dharma talk that I'm not going to do right now. It doesn't mean empty like empty. It means empty of a separate self-existence. So we had Founders Dinner last weekend where we honored Daigan and Alicia Matsunaga, the 2 founders there on the founders wall. Their pictures are there. It was very well attended. We had filled the table downstairs in Haroma Hall. So temple life is in full flower. Yeah. So I wonder, I think probably all of us at one point or another, when we found out the temple was here, had this thought, a Buddhist temple in Reno? Really? With our casino history or the Wild West rodeo kind of ethos, it doesn't quite seem to jibe with the existence of the temple here. But we are here, and for 30 years in May, it's our 30th anniversary of the temple, which is very exciting. That's a big deal. Among temples, however, it's the tiniest little click of the second hand One temple Reverend Shelley and I visited on our last trip to Japan was founded in 690 of the Common Era. So that's a really old temple. But for Reno, it's a long time, 30 years. It's all due to our visionary founders, Daigan and Alicia Matsunaga. 1989 is when they started the temple here. Buddhist pioneers, our Buddhist pioneers. Now, we're not the first temple in Reno. The first was at Lake Street and First Street corner there. It was usually referred to as the Joss House, which is a kind of Western word for any temple. If the people who went there burned incense, they called it the cowboys would call it a Joss House. And it honored Lao Tzu, Confucius, and Buddha, and served a congregation of mostly Chinese folks. There were some Japanese people too in town at that time. Between 1860 and 1940, the Joss House was in operation on that corner. The city tore down the building in 1958 because it was in disrepair. And its remaining trustees, it was amazing, there were trustees remaining, kind of decided whether, well, should we rebuild or not. They decided to build a picnic shelter at Rancho San Rafael Park. And that is why the Joss House Pavilion is at Rancho San Rafael Park. It was dedicated in 1984 as a tribute to Reno's community of Chinese people and the Chinatown neighborhood that was in that part of town. It was unfortunately and abruptly eliminated in 1906. Anyway, we can let that go. Pioneering Buddhists in Reno, though. We mentioned their contribution, which is significant. So, pioneering, that idea comes to mind when we think of those days. What is pioneering? Sometimes we say like going a place no one else has gone before. That's kind of exploring. Pioneers sort of, they sort of use ideas and methods that haven't been used before. That's one way pioneers express pioneering. And there's an aspect of Buddhism that can be called pioneering for each of us. We live life, excuse me, I cough, in one way. We just sort of naturally fall into it. We assume that this I, me, my thing that runs everything is real and the agent of all things. And then we come to the Dharma. And though the Dharma is not new to the world or the universe, it's new to us. And we have to, on our own, do a bit of pioneering ourselves. We have to implement the Dharma in our life. And that's a new thing. Now, there's more to it than that, but from our Bonbunin point of view, that's what we're doing, our kind of self-centered point of view. We think we decide and implement everything in our life, including the teachings. And at first, that's okay. Really, the universe has aligned myriad causes and conditions that lead us and support us in the Dharma. But we think we do it all, which is kind of silly, really. We engage in this pioneering ourselves. We strike out on a snowy day and go to the temple for the first time. Anybody here for the first time? Yay, cool. People like that are real pioneers. Yeah. The Buddha, in his teachings, often described this as going against the stream. Like in the Dhammapada reading, that was one part of it. Normal life assumes, let's see, how do you say this? It's a jungle out there. We have to fight our way through, or we'll be plowed under by all the other guys who are trying to fight for resources or something like that. That's a normal way of looking at life. The Buddha's view is very different. The Buddha showed us that if we simply look at life, deeply look at life, a different course becomes obvious. When we recognize for ourselves the actual character of our experience, interconnected and vibrant, instead of just going with the kind of cockeyed, selfish view that everyone else is living, with the insights we gain from introspection and extrospection, we call it deep hearing in Shin Buddhism, we can chart another course. We can pioneer a new way of living life, one that is not based on getting what we want now, but instead based on realizing that it is the wanting for what we don't have that is causing our pain or our anxiety or suffering. If we let go that wanting, then joy flows into us. And the Buddha offers a joy that has always been there, all along, untapped, unnoticed by our Bonbu self. The fundamental nature of being is joy-filled, but to our goofy, self-centered Bonbunin identity, it distorts things, and then it suffers and feels lack. We all can pioneer this experience for ourselves. Our method is to take refuge in the wisdom and compassion of the universe. The primal vow of Amida Buddha was to accept all beings into the Dharma, just as they are. This is universal acceptance, universal love. When we experience universal love, we feel a welling up of gratitude, and the ice sculpture that is our I, me, my self, it melts a little bit. When we come to trust this compassionate universe deeply and reach a peaceful awareness of its wise and compassionate nature, the ice melts. We are reborn in the Buddha field of Amida Buddha, as he promised eons ago, the Pure Land. The peaceful awareness we reach is also called settled mind. At that point where we know we're no longer pioneers, we're settlers. People who have come to stay and reside in the Nembutsu, residing in gratitude for everything, in every moment. I may have gotten off track a little bit with the pioneering stuff. The founders of our temple were just such people who had settled in their peaceful awareness of Amida Buddha in each moment. And in gratitude to the Buddha, they founded this temple to share the Buddha's Dharma with people who would otherwise not experience it. There on the founder's wall, we honor the two people who pioneered this place. They used ideas and methods that had not been used before and shared the Dharma in this place with these people, and they continue today. Reverend Daigan Matsunaga was my teacher. I met him in 1998 when I first came to the temple. We moved here in 1997, but for some reason it took me a year to find the temple. He was warm and friendly at our first meeting. We discussed my background and experience of Buddhism in Sri Lanka and Japan. Reverend Daigan thought of RBC as an opportunity to share the Dharma, maybe even an experiment. He was so very joyful and excited to share the Dharma in any way. He would not have been able to sit on this platform because he would be jumping up all the time, and it wouldn't have been safe. He usually sat in a stool or stood during his Dharma talks. Founding the temple in a place with no apparent Buddhist population was intriguing to him. He thought of it as some kind of validation of the Buddhist teachings, an experiment. If he offered the Dharma to people here, not from Buddhist families, with little exposure to Buddhism before, if these people saw the value of the teachings and supported the temple, that proves the universal appeal of Buddhism. It isn't just a traditional path as he experienced growing up in Japan. Well, I'm looking around, I think he was right. His experiment succeeded. That's wonderful. Daigan used to say that he had first heard the Nembutsu, this Namu Amida Butsu that it says in the scroll, before he was born, which is true because he was literally born in the temple in Hokkaido. The Shoshinge was always part of everyday life as he grew up in the Valley of the White Birch, Tadoshi, Japan. It's very beautiful. He said he could chant it before he could read. His father was not only the temple master at Eikyoji Temple, but also served as a prison chaplain. So some of the time his dad was away when Daigan was small. The post-war years were very difficult in Japan, but Daigan seldom talked about those difficulties. He loved going to the movies. And there were 4 movie theaters in this tiny little town. I mean, it's post office, gas station, police office, 3 temples, and 4 movie theaters in this little tiny farming town. And his favorite type of movie were Westerns. So maybe that was the seed of his love for Reno, was all those Westerns. Certainly they did help him with his English, though he had those artifacts that were like things you learn in cowboy movies that we don't actually say. Hitchin' My Giddy Up is one of them. After studying in Kyoto and ordination and further Buddhist theological training, he went to USC Theological School on a scholarship for further study, and then he received a master's and a PhD from Claremont Graduate University. He met Alicia there. He was a professor at Cal State Northridge. He taught Japanese history and Buddhism for 13 years in his teaching career. His greatest challenge came when Alicia died in 1998. He was left with 2 temples and 2 sanghas to care for. That's when he tried his most innovative pioneering yet. Very early live streaming service. It required a special box on either end in Japan and here. And it was a little shaky, but it worked. It did. He would get up at 2 o'clock in the morning on Monday in Japan and give his Dharma Talk to us here in Reno on Sunday, which sounds kind of weird if you say it in a sentence, but the date line's in between. So that sustained us for about 10 years. He would come and visit sometimes. He got sick in 2007, so he wasn't able to travel here anymore, and fought cancer for 3 more years before he passed on. Some folks came to the founders' dinner and saw that there's a video documentary of Daigan made by BDK TV. It was wonderful to see him and hear him share his enthusiasm. At the time of the interview, he had checked himself out of the hospital after his colon surgery in Sapporo and returned to Eikyoji Temple to meet the TV crew. His doctor was not happy with that, but for the sake of the Dharma, nothing was going to stop Daigan. On one of his visits to Eikyoji, and our visits, when we were visiting with him in Eikyoji, in 2007, we toured Hokkaido with Daigan. He had a Cadillac, a green Cadillac. He was very proud of it. Not that many people in Hokkaido had Cadillacs, but there was a dealership. He took us from interesting place to interesting place, and it was pleasant. Went to temples and shrines, historic spots. As we drove, he told the story of his post-operative experience in the hospital. As he lay in recovery, he could see all around the margin of the wall in the recovery room, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas attending him. It sounds a little quirky, but I mean, he was coming out of the anesthetic and everything. They were ready to guide him onward. And then he said, "But I didn't go." Yeah, and he laughed. "I have too much to do here." So, thank you, Daigan. He died on February 23rd, 2010. Yeah. So, and Alicia is our other founder who is honored today. Alicia Orloff Matsunaga is her name. I only met her a few times. Her last Dharma talk that I saw was about how we struggle with the changefulness of life. She had the lectern covered with bottles of medications and over-the-counter remedies. She had leukemia at the time. She just marveled at how we unconsciously cling to the idea that we will live forever. Yeah. So she saw it with humor. She was born in 1932 in Livermore, California, but the family moved and she considered Mount Shasta area her home place. You might notice occasional pictures all over the temple of Mount Shasta. That's the reason. She loved horses growing up. Her stirrups from her English saddle are actually on her altar there. She earned a bachelor's degree from Cal and a master's from University of Redlands. Fluent in Japanese, she received theological training in Kyoto and a PhD from Claremont Graduate University. There's the confluence of our two founders. She taught for 9 years at UCLA, Buddhism and Asian culture. A retired Buddhist Churches of America is another denomination that's the same Shin Buddhism, but in California, and slightly different, but similar. And one of their bishops came and visited us a couple years ago, and he didn't really know that this was Alicia's temple until he saw her picture, and he said, he remembered a lot about her, mostly that she was a tough teacher and expected a lot from students. Even so, he rose to the excellence she expected. He became a TA in her classes and truly appreciated her as a teacher. The strongest impression Alicia gave was as a passionate animal lover. She would rescue any animal that needed a home. Even more so the wicked. That's actually a quote from Shinran Shonin, but it applies here. She had a parrot that no one could go near. It was so aggressive. It would just bite you. It would bite around on her shoulder, and she seemed fine with it. She had a Hokkaido bear dog. They get that name not because they look like a bear, but because they are so aggressive that they will fight a grizzly bear one-on-one. If there's a couple, 2 or 3 of them, they will win, but that's a horrendous thing. They will attack anything that stands on 2 legs, like a grizzly bear. Yeah. This created sort of a problem for humans, as you might imagine. There are many stories of like board meetings at the temple and various board members complaining about the dog biting them on the shins, and different times, I think, because we have cute little beagles. They don't bite people. So. But something about her compassionate heart, she knew that those animals were not going to get the love that the sweet ones do, and so her compassion went out to them. The most gentle animals in Alicia's RBC menagerie were the ferrets. Rescued from California, where they are illegal, she had 2 of the little rascals. Not so bad when they were on leashes. She would walk them around at tea time after the service. We'd go down and chat and talk, and there's treats and tea and everything, and she would walk them on little leashes. If you didn't mind rodents, they were cute. Also terrifying for a lot of people who are afraid of rodents. So, good luck catching them, though. If they escaped, they had like these harnesses, and I don't know if you've ever imagined how you would harness a ferret, but they're long and thin. So, I remember one time they got loose and went in the Haroma kitchen cupboards, and they didn't come out to feeding time. Good memories. So. Her love of animals was born of this deep compassion, and she apparently, really obviously chose the most difficult ones to love. Though I think really she preferred animals to humans, and that's okay. There's some obvious reasons for that. They are straightforward. Alicia got sick in 1997 and then died in 1998. These two gentle people were our pioneers. They responded to a calling beyond themselves to share the Dharma with all of us. They put in blood and sweat, tears, I'm sure. These two spent great effort and time here for all of us. They lived at RBC on and off on the third floor in the rooms there. Sometimes one would be in Japan and one would be in Reno, caring for the two sanghas. Sometimes they were together. It was a tough, pioneering life they led, though they would never say or complain about it. And they succeeded. Their experimental temple in Nevada is now the spiritual home of us, of these settlers, the second wave of people who come when the pioneers have made it seem possible. Reverend Shelley and myself are settled here. We were here for some time. Settled and sustainable because of the sangha. In a way the pioneers probably never felt. They always felt that it was a little shaky. We don't have that feeling. We owe them so much. They have our undying gratitude and great admiration. Most important to them was our experience of Buddhism. They wanted you to be able to hear the Dharma and to work through that pioneering stage of newness and insecurity and go through to the settled stage, residing in peaceful awareness, knowing the presence of the Buddha and the Dharma in all things, finding peace in your life, finding inner peace and gratitude for this wonderful life in this wonderful place with these wonderful people. Namo Amida Butsu. Please share with me my great wish for Daigan and Alicia Matsunaga, wherever they are. Just repeat after me. Dear teachers, may you be happy. May you be free from harm. May you receive boundless compassion. And may peace and harmony fill your heart. Nama loves. Nama loves. Nama loves. Thank you. It is our custom now to sing the Reno Buddhist Center theme song, selected by Alicia from the movie How the West Was Won, but that's not the important part. She thought it was about the Pure Land. So the books in front of you on the back there, page 49, are the words. If you could stand and we'll sing it together. I'm on. I have a few announcements. First of all, there's a bunch of announcements on the order of service over here. Please read those. The important one, though, is there is tea and treats downstairs through those doors and in Haroma Hall, so gather there. We will have a newcomer circle after people have had a little tea. Back up here, George Killeran is in the back there. He will lead that and circle the wagons, as we say in pioneering time, but in a good way. Include everyone in your circle. Include everyone in your circle. Other announcements exist, but most important, Moon Rabbit Cafe is next Saturday, the 23rd, from 4 to 7. It's at our Pay What You Can restaurant, and it's going to be Bollywood night. So, turns out I was excited about that until I'm still excited, but there is not dancing. I'm sorry. There will be some videos that depict it, but we may have to try to talk the wait staff into an impromptu Bollywood number. The choreographer, Katie Fisher, is here, so she'll work on that. Shaking her head emphatically. Thank you all very much.